everyone, it's Kevin here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys some of the best posing tips that I use with my clients to pose their hands and their arms. A lot of times when I am working with a person for the first time, they usually tell me I have no idea what to do with my hands in photographs, and that is something that's huge. If a hand does not have a purpose or if it does not look natural in an image, it tends to look very out of place and your eyes will immediately go to the hands to see what that person is doing. Typically the hands are doing something important and that's why our eyes are so drawn to hands. So if they're doing something strange, it's going to stand out quite a lot. So one of the things that I always tell my clients is to, when they're holding hands, never ever ever do this. This is what I call shrimp cocktail fingers. It's a fun term used in the industry, and it helps a lot of my grooms actually remember not to interlace their fingers. And the reason that I don't want my couples to ever do this when they're holding hands is because it starts to look like too many fingers. The brain wants to count it. It's just like a bunch of little finger sausages. So I never suggest that when you're holding hands. Instead, what I recommend is a very loose hand hold. Typically, I would put the bride's hand in front or whoever has these smaller hands if it is a bride and a bride couple. So that's how I'll do that because I don't want the bigger hand overtaking. Now, if you are a bride-groom couple and the groom has smaller hands than the bride, I'd probably still go with the bride anyway, show off her ring on the front, but that's a really great tip for when you guys are holding hands. Now, in terms of other things that happen with your hands, a lot of times I will see really disconnected photographs that people take of a couple during their wedding or engagement session where the couple is standing and they are basically embracing each other with their bodies, but they might even be kissing, and usually the groom's hand is just dangling down by his side. And that is what I call a dead arm. And that is because that arm is hanging there. Why is it there? Like usually if you're gonna kiss somebody, you're gonna wrap both your hands around them. So I never want a hand to just be hanging out or an arm to just be hanging out in the universe, having no purpose like that. It's not the same as it being relaxed. If they were walking side by side, then that hand could be down with their arm down and nice and relaxed, kind of swaying as they're walking. That makes sense. But to see something that's supposed to be very romantically connected, but the arm is dangling by the side, it does not connect. So remember, if your photographer tells you to snuggle up, like holding each other, or like go ahead and kiss, use both of your hands around it. Or one thing I do like to do for a groom is usually put one of his hands in the pants pocket, other hand around the bride. That works whether I'm posing them for a more camera-aware portrait or if I'm having them kiss. But just having the arm hanging by the side is never good. Now that's kind of the main things that I see when I'm working with hands and arms. One of the things that I find to be very important, especially for my brides, is the way that their fingers are situated. So a lot of times I will see ring selfies where people are doing this. They're spreading their fingers really wide and that does not look natural. Do you ever walk around like this? Like it looks like you just got your nails done? Probably not. So instead, a very relaxed finger position. You could have it here on the face, and all the fingers are kind of spaced nicely. I'm looking in a mirror behind me just to make sure what I'm doing does look like what I would want for it to be happening on a client. So really nice like this. Other hand could come softly. This would look so different if I was doing this. Okay, that's not elegant and soft. This is elegant and soft. Natural spacing between the fingers that is not too crazy and weird and strange. It's also very loose and elegant. Typically for women, I want them to have softer looking hands. For men, things like fist convey a lot more strength. I usually am not using a lot of fist in my work, but if I was working with more of a commercial client and he wanted to look really masculine, I would have him use more fist. But for most clients, I want them really loose and natural, and then my brides especially very, very loose. So with hands, one of the things that you can do when you're posing, and I'm mostly going to talk to brides about this because I feel like brides have more fun hand options. You can hold your bouquet, which is really great. You can hold on to part of your dress, so just grab it very loosely. I always say ballerina hands. So that is just like this, your middle finger and your thumb loosely, not stiffly. Don't do weird things with the other fingers, but very loosely you are going to grab onto your dress and you can sway it. And before I move on to other hand posing positions, I do want to make the point that when you are playing with your dress, a lot of brides have the tendency to just be very straight or very stiff. you want everything to flow naturally. Now, if I had a wider space to film in, I would show you what that looked like vertically. So instead, I'll post some photos. But just to demonstrate here, like if I was doing this playing with my dress and it was down by my hip, that looks weird. But to like bend every joint in a very wavy circular like motion is a lot more elegant. You're going to see things like that in ballet. In ballet, the lines are very important. If you have a joint and it bends, break it. We don't want to maybe go 90 degrees, but just a soft bend, a loose line. So that's something I highly recommend for brides, is that whenever you are introducing motion to play with your gown or your veil, always bend everything in a very beautiful oceanic type movement, and that's going to be great. Now, another thing that I love to do with hands in my brides is I actually will have them hold on to a bit of hair, because one of the things that I love to do is to take bridal portraits with and without the bouquet. If I had every single photo of the bride with the bouquet, she has very few to no photos that show off just her dress and her look alone. So if I'm not using a bouquet, I have to place the hands somewhere. So usually in the hair is where I'll go, grab onto a loose bit of it, bring it behind her jawline. I'm not wearing earrings, but I would maybe have her play with her earrings a little bit, all very soft, loose hands. So that's a really nice thing that you can do. If your photographer does not give a lot of direction, then you can just start doing things and say like, does this look good? I don't know. I hope that they will give you direction, or at least let you know that what you're doing does look nice. So another thing, you could have a little bit of a stronger pose. You could have one hand bouncing on the other. Have it like that. Have it up in your hair. You could go sideways, something like that. So just find realistic things to play with, whether it's on your dress or in your hair or just softly touching your face. That's going to be beautiful. Now, if you want a lovely photo that shows off bracelets or rings, you could always have it. So I'm just going to stand on my tippy toes so you guys can see. So you could always have this lower here, to where effectively your hand is going to be on your other wrist. And so it's going to be nice and loose. It might be down by the side of your hip, something like that. So those are all really great things to do with your hands during photos. But again, the key to this is soft and natural and realistic. Okay, you never want anything to look too harsh or jarring, like really harsh angles, unless you're going for a really high fashion look. But chances are you're probably going for a more softer bridal look, and so that's what you're going to follow, are softer, cleaner lines. Now let's jump onto the arms. I've already mentioned, especially with a couple, that your arms should have a purpose. If you are kissing, have the hands around each other or a hand in the pocket. Have the hands always doing something as an extension of your arm. Now, the biggest thing that I see almost every woman trying to do whenever I go to take a photo of them is that they immediately think to themselves, my arm cannot look fat or big in this photo, and thus I cannot have it directly against my side. So this must be the only option here, to have it like this crazy thing. Sometimes they even break their wrist. Like, I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. Yeah. So they'll break their wrist. This to me is very unnatural looking. It's a very harsh, very jarring right angle to me. And so what I will do is I often suggest that instead my brides follow a couple of other rules. Okay, so I've lowered my camera just a bit so that you guys can see this part better. So instead of doing like this with one or both arms, what I would recommend is to at least have one arm more natural by the side. And what you can do, you don't have to have it squeezed in. You want to leave a little bit of a space. So right now this lower hand is literally just resting against my thigh, okay? So that's going to be something that's going to just look natural. It's on my thigh, and instead of a harsh right angle, I still have a little bit of a bend, and I have space that shows the space between my waist and my arm. Especially if you're wearing a long sleeve outfit, if you have this, it's going to add bulk to your side, no matter how small or how large you are. So to have a little bit of a break, especially if you have a sleeve that is the same color as your outfit. Right now, my skin is extremely white, so it's very easy for it to contrast against the black, so you can clearly see where my waist is. But just doing this in any outfit is going to be great, especially if you have no contrast between sleeve and your waist. So that's enough of a space that's not going to make your arm look bigger than it really is, because of course if you squish like this, it's going to get bigger. Bring it off to the side a little bit. Now, if you do want to have your hand higher up on your hip, having it out like this is way too harsh. So draw it back a little bit, bring the hand down just a touch, and that's going to rest along the nice curve of your hip down into your leg. that is an excellent position for a bride, whether you are a bride on the wedding day or you are just honestly just a woman in general. It looks really great. So instead of the next time you're out with your girlfriends and everybody goes to take a picture and all the girls are like, hey, with this whole like right angle that's very harsh and very distracting and unnatural looking, you're gonna be the one who looks like this. Your arm is not going to look bigger than it really is, and you're going to look a lot more relaxed, natural, and elegant. I did want to show off my nails. I just had them done. This is the first time I've ever had like fancy nails done. They were inspired by a photo of macarons, and the girl who did my nails said, I've never had anybody bring me something that wasn't a photo of somebody else's nails. And I was like, I love being unique, and if I can't find it already in the form of what I want it in, I will find it in the form of food or fashion or interior design. So just a little quick shout out to iNailology for doing a really cool job on my nails. So the last thing I do want to talk about is really something that is very dependent on the environment that you are in. So if you are already using some of these tips that I've suggested to you, or you want to change things up, one thing that you guys can do is make use of your environment. So if there's a ledge and you can realistically lean your arm on it, that could be really nice. You could bring the other wrist on top. A guy, you kind of lean against it. So I love using different structural elements when I'm shooting at locations that I can use to have a variety in my posing that also makes sense for the environment that I'm in. So for example, if I have a railing, I will have a couple lean against it, drape their hands over it nicely, look out at whatever the view is. If I have a wall, I will oftentimes prop the groom up against it and the bride almost think she's very gently pushing him up against the wall, just a cute romantic moment. If there's a column or something or a gate, I'll have them hold on to it if it's thin or rest their hand above it like up high, and that could be done with just the bride and the groom is kind of hugging her from behind, or just a photo of the bride herself. But anything that you can hold on to or rest on, those are going to be really great things. And remember, when you are doing this, make sure your hand isn't resting and then it's like weird fingers. You still want everything to be really nice and relaxed. So any harsh right angles, at least for me, are a big no. Those tend to read very masculine, very like you're trying to dominate a scene, which is a really great look for some forms of photography, but not typically for wedding photography, at least not for the clients that I have. So they usually want to look a little bit more ethereal, soft and dreamy. The men usually want to look masculine, but not overly dominant and masculine on their wedding day. So all of these things are things that you guys can take and apply, but really it is all about confidence and making sure that you look and feel relaxed, because if you don't feel relaxed, you're never going to look relaxed in your face. So that's going to be it, guys. The final tip I'm going to leave you with is always make sure your shoulders are back and down. That is a huge thing to do. We never want shoulders creeping up in the ears for photos, and we never want hunching, especially from the side. That just really completes all of the bits of the arm. I am going to make a future video about posing with the legs, the hips, and the feet, because that is really important as well. But I think for most of you, the hands and arms are probably going to be your primary areas of concern when posing on your wedding day. If you guys did enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!